Okay, if you look in your devotional books there, you'll see towards, actually I think it's right after that song, you'll see a part there, there's 3 pages, and it says Lessons from a Soldier. The title is at the top, and it's in red letters. For these 3 services in the morning service, I'm going to give you some lessons that I learned while in the military service. And so you're welcome to write notes down there if you'd like. Benjamin Franklin said this: "He that is good at making excuses is seldom good for anything else." On May 11th, 1991, I got on a plane from Chicago and bound for San Diego, California to begin basic training in the United States Marine Corps. To give you an idea, that's when Bush was president, Bush Sr. On the way along there and through my military training, I learned some things. I probably should have learned them before when I was your age. But I was confronted with some things, and there were life lessons. So I want to give you some life lessons, some things that if you grab a hold of these things, you'll be better as a man, especially, and you'll be better as a lady. There are things that if I was taught these things, or I probably was taught those things, but had I been listening like I should have, then when those things happen, I would have known how to respond better, but I didn't. We arrived in San Diego for basic training. Basic training, otherwise sometimes known as boot camp, that's kind of the old term for it, involved 3 phases. The first phase, we learned our very, very basic things. And when I mean basic things, they retaught us everything. You had to learn to make your bed. You had to learn how to eat. That is, very quickly. They used to tell us, "We're having ducks today, gentlemen. Duck in and duck out." And it was quick, and if you didn't get it, you didn't get it. You were done. We had to learn how to dress. Everything. We had to learn how to speak, or should I say shout. Everything was yelled. Everything was screamed. Everything. And that's odd for somebody that, if you're not used to that. That's what they did it. They taught us basic things, lots of lessons. They taught us about the history of the Marine Corps, made us proud to be where we were. They taught us how to address authority. They taught us knowledge, basic military knowledge, lots of physical training, lots of push-ups, lots of rope climbing, lots of running. I grew up in sports my whole life, so I actually enjoyed that part of it. Then there was basic swimming. I have a bit of a story here. I went into the Marine Corps, Marine Corps, without knowing how to swim. And they didn't cover that. The recruiter didn't cover that with me. So I can remember we went to the pool. They never told you what you were going to do that day. They just told you how to dress, and they marched you over there, and you found out when you got there. Well, they were diving off of a 10-foot platform into the pool. We had combat boots on. We had our utilities, like these guys were dressed up here, and we had our helmets, and we had our deuce gear, where we had our canteens and everything, and we had our rubber rifles. Well, I didn't know how to swim. So they were jumping off of this tower into the pool, and you had to swim to the other side. It wasn't the length of the pool, it was just the width of the pool. Not a problem if you know how to swim. So I'm climbing the stairs, and I thought to myself, well, they missed something here. They missed something in the beginning. They don't know I don't know how to swim. I simply need to inform them, and they'll give me a couple lessons off to the side, and I'll be happy to jump off of their platform. So I got to the top, and I had everything planned, and I said, "Sir!" And I don't know, I didn't get anything out after that. He grabbed my deuce gear like this, and he pulled me to himself, shouting a number of astonishing oaths. The next thing I know, I was flying through the air. If you've ever seen a cat thrown into water, it didn't go quite that good for me. And then we had drill practice. If you can't drill, you can't be a Marine. Drill practice was very important. I don't mean like making holes in things. I'm talking about marching. They spent hours teaching us how to stand at attention. They how to salute, how to do an about face, how to do flanking movements, column left, column right, how to do all these things as a unit. If you've been in the military, you know what I'm saying. It's not a natural, you have to discipline yourself. But when everybody's working together like that and all the boots are hitting at the same time, it's pretty awesome. Third phase is kind of a redoing of first phase, only it's more involved, a lot more PT, and now they were testing us on our knowledge. And the drill practice involved now rifle movements. And so we would do left shoulder and right shoulder arms, present arms, and these things. And I can remember that when we didn't do it very well, our senior drill instructor would get kind of angry with us, and we would have to go into a dirt pit somewhere. And we were platoon 1043, that is 1043, but he would wrap the flag around the guidon, which is the pole there, so that just the zero was showing. And he said, and he called us something, it was rather not very nice. And he said, "You're platoon 0." And then he would throw the guidon down. Well, you never let that thing hit the ground. So guys would dive underneath it and everything. Anyway, we commenced to have our fun in the dirt. That was phase 3. Phase 2, however, was a little bit different. We got in buses, and we went out to a place in Camp Pendleton called Edson Range. This is where we were going to learn how to do combat maneuvers. Again, we didn't know. We just got on the bus, and they wouldn't let us look outside, I remember. They told us to put our heads down and allowed us to turn our heads in our helmets to make it look like the helmet was still facing forward, and we tried to look outside. We hadn't seen the outdoor, for a long time. Well, they knew that. They didn't want us to be involved with that, so we're not supposed to look out the window. We got there, and they taught us how to use our M16A2 service rifle. To this day, I didn't know how to shoot. I grew up in the city, suburbs. I didn't know how to shoot anything. I didn't grow up in the farm with my grandpa's Kentucky rifle or anything like that. But that was actually a good thing. I was taught by the best people in the world how to fire and shoot. Got to the point where I could hit a man-sized target at 500 meters, 10 out of 10, iron sights. Gave us confidence in our weapon. We learned how to low crawl. We learned how to do these things, combat maneuvers. One of those times, they let us go to a church service. That was a Catholic service. I actually grew up Catholic, but I didn't really care, and neither did anybody else. It could have been a Buddhist service. I just wanted to get out of the barracks. And as we were marching down there, I noticed that behind the church building there was a phone. It was a pay phone. Now, back then, you could call collect. That is, you call 1-800-COLLECT, tell them the number. They would call the people you wanted to phone, and they would ask me if it's okay to reverse charges. It was Father's Day, so I thought I'm going to call my dad. So me and 2 other guys snuck out of the service there, and we went to the back, and I spent a couple minutes talking to my dad. Well, we got back in, didn't think anything about it. Somebody told on us. And I can remember that the senior drill instructor had us all in formation there, and he told the other 2 guys to step up there. He didn't call my name. Somehow I escaped it. But I knew those guys were going to say something probably, so I stood up. And when I stepped forward like that, he asked what I was doing. When I told him I also made that, like it was yesterday, he grabbed the podium that was there, and he threw it out the door. It shattered into I don't know how many pieces. I thought, oh boy, and this was a senior drill instructor. Basically, he had your life in his hand. Pretty much he could do whatever he wanted to with you. I thought, we're in trouble. For the rest of the time, we were called the phone bandits. And they would say, phone bandits. And everybody had to say, phone bandits, aye, sir. And he would say, move. We'd scamper up there, as 3 of us, and we'd stand at attention. I can remember one time, he took his heel, and he drew a circle on the ground. Everybody else was going to a movie, I think, or to eat. And there was this circle. So we thought, we're standing at attention. And he says, you will not leave this circle until it's all wet. Then he left. So we're looking at each other. Okay. So we started exercising, trying to build the sweat. We were throwing the sweat down there, spitting, smearing it. Well, it was a lesson in futility. So for the rest of that time there, we were standing in the circle. We couldn't leave that circle. And that's where we were. Anything nasty job that he needed done, he would call the phone bandits up there, and we would do it. I presumed that I had a right to be excused from what everybody else was doing. I figured probably they would do something to me, but there was something I learned then. See, I thought that what they did to me was too extreme. I felt like I had the right to do that. Maybe they didn't say we couldn't. Maybe they don't love their dads like I do. That's what I thought. I had all these excuses to justify what I did. And after I received a punishment for it, I didn't like it. I didn't like it. My heart was full of pride. I didn't respond very well to that. And I thought they should have accepted my excuses. And you know what? We're the same way, aren't we? You make excuses for something. Bottom line is you didn't do what you were supposed to do, or you should have done what you didn't do. That's the bottom line. Excuses, like Benjamin Franklin did, are worthless. It never goes anywhere. You make an excuse for something, you learn nothing. Nothing. John Wooden, famous basketball coach years ago from Indiana, he wrote in his book, A Lifetime of Observations and Reflections on and Off the Court, he says, never make excuses. Your friends don't need them, and your foes won't believe them. Friend and foe alike got no use for your excuses. What about Adam when Eve was found out? What did he say? The woman you gave me, she gave me of the tree, and she said, the serpent, did she? Did God accept those excuses? Oh, you're right. I shouldn't have given you that woman. My fault. My bad. I shouldn't have done that. He didn't accept it, did he? Here's another verse, Proverbs 22:13. The sluggard says, there's a lion outside. I'll be killed in the streets. Here's something magnificent about this verse. It says a lion. Now, most of you, what's the point here? That sluggard was supposed to be out doing something. And his excuse for not doing it is there was a lion outside. Probably most of you would say, well, yeah, there's a lion out there. I should stay inside. I'm going to get eaten. God doesn't even accept that. He calls him a sluggard. How much less are our excuses? And we feel like everybody should take it. We feel justified in this. The Bible says in James chapter 5, verse 12, in the second part of the verse, let your yea be yea and your nay be nay. Amen. If you did it, say you did it. If you didn't do it, bless God, say you didn't do it. Amen. And let's get over it. But we don't like the blame. It's a weakness. It's a human weakness that we have. Especially you young men. Let me tell you something. You're not much of a man if you make up excuses and you expect people to believe it. Sorry, you're not. Everybody knows except for you. You ever heard somebody making excuses? You want to roll your eyes, don't you? Maturity is when you stop complaining and making excuses and realize that it's your choice. And you're living with the choice that you made. Start making some better choices. Stop making excuses. If you messed up, say you messed up. Let me give you probably the worst excuse. Yeah, God hasn't called me to preach, so I can make an excuse from what he's saying right now. That's an excuse. That's the lamest excuse, if you ask me. Because I'm not talking about being called to the ministry. I'm talking about tomorrow morning you wake up, you don't read your Bible, it's because you're sorry and you should have read it. So say you didn't read it, and let's get over it and read it the next morning. It's the kind of thing that I didn't respond very well, and I should have. Now listen to me. Your excuses is going to destroy your walk. You'll learn nothing. It would be used of God. Now again, I'm talking about today, the rest of this day, talking about tomorrow, talking about when you go back home. Determine, I'm not going to make excuses. If I messed up, I'm going to say I messed up. I'm going to ask God to help me, and I'm going to do better next time.